Oh, right. My buttons aren't working.
There we go.
Shit's sake. Hello.
Hello.
Somebody has pressed Gary's buttons.
Yes. Well, I'm glad they're pressing them because I can't find them. Mine ain't working.
I know Wendy can press them.
Oh,
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. All she got to do is turn on the Today Show.
Or the View.
See, even with the View, even I know I cannot handle, because then I might just start putting holes in walls. Anyway.
Or a TV. That way you can
That
get
too.
that new 90-inch.
No shit.
Oh, can you get a 90-inch and then you bring it home and all that's on? You turn it on and all you can get is the View.
Oh.
You have Joy Behar and like 98 inches. Blah, blah, blah. So, here they are. Let me see. Where'd you do? I saw you. Oh, here they are.
Realistically though, I have never seen or heard in my life a more hateful person than Joy Behar.
Yep.
I mean, just freaking full of hate. But anyway.
Well, Sunny Hostin's coming up on us.
Yeah, no kidding.
She's coming up right behind her.
Oh, boy.
Well, my relatives are slave owners, but I still think in reparations. Well, then bring out your checkbook
Start paying
then.
it out. Yeah.
Yep. Write yourself a check. Dumb.
Yeah, sir. Well, anyway,
Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to Perception Theory, and
Hello.
We're here with Cuz, Tex, and our boy over there, Evil Ed. And so we don't have any announcements. We don't do announcements on here.
No.
But this week is Evil Ed's time to shine. So we're going to turn over the show to Evil Ed.
All right.
And that's a nice shirt. Where'd you get that? I'd like to get that.
Yeah. I'll let you wear it every once in a while.
There you go.
Ooh.
Together? That's a big neck hole. All right,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to say.
Give me like Siamese twins.
All right. Went from an extra large to a 10X.
And you have to grow your beard out a little bit more.
That is true. So the topic that we're going to discuss today is going to be the biggest question that a lot of us have is what's happening with the middle class. So I think we all did some research on this, and the more I find, the more disturbing the news is. So I guess we'll start back in the 70s. Let me paint you a little picture of that nice little house, nice brick house. You've got, the mom, the husband, obviously. You got the kids running around. You got the white picket fence, and, you got the car. Everything is good. Well, now that's over with. So, most people today actually consider themselves the middle class or the working class. If you say lower class, which nobody's going to say, hey, by the way, I'm lower class, or they have no class.
I was going to say
That's
class.
that's ethical and morally.
You're
Yes.
like a school of the summertime.
No class.
Oh, stop it. That they're going to think that you're lazy. They're going to think that you're lazy. And if you say you're upper class, then people are going to think you're rich and they're going to hate you, which is probably true. So,
I say, I resent that sort of perception.
yeah.
Jeeves, bring my Rolls Royce around, please.
Yes. Please prepare my coach. So let's take a look back. I know Gary loves my little history stories here. I'll make it brief. So back in Greece, this was...
Woof, you're going way back.
Oh, yeah. We're in the Wayback Machine. We got Socrates. We got Socrates, a.k.a. Socrates.
Socrates.
So there was this group of people, and they were called the Messoi. And basically what these people were is they were the majority of the citizens. They were self-employed. They were independent, and they could make decisions on their own. These people never really cared, nor did they look at different types of classes. Basically, everybody was the exact same. The way that it's described is everybody could sit on the same bench. So it's, not like when you go to the movie theaters and you have the people that are all the way up at the top in the expensive seats, getting beer and everything delivered to them, and then you have everybody else that's down in the lower area. They were all the same. Everybody had an equal voice. So added to that was a third dimension, and these were citizens who lived outside the cities, and it all started off with soldiers that had actually fought for Greece. So basically what had happened is everybody got 10-acre parcels that were given to each family, and again, these are from the soldiers that actually fought for Greece. These people created laws, and they abided by them, and they upheld these laws.
What about a mule? Did he get a mule too?
He probably had a couple mules at 10 acres. So these were the independent thinking. They were not coerced by any other classes. In other words, they were not coerced by the upper class. They weren't coerced by the Missoi people. It was all just, we're in this together. So then we jump a little bit ahead to during the pre-industrial revolution, where a lot of people were farmers. They could get up in the morning and they would work, constant mental and physical jobs. And the Greeks believed that this was a sign of strength, that you were physically strong, but you were also mentally strong. And then we fast forward to today, and nobody wants to be a farmer.
Well, yeah, and the mentally strong.
That's another episode.
That's out the window, too.
So as we move forward, after World War II, productivity and GDP was skyrocketing at this point. And for those of you who don't know what GDP is, it's gross domestic product, and it's a reference point for the health of a nation and for global economy. So in the 70s, we were flying high, and also back through the 40s and the 50s, and even up into the 60s. So basically what this meant is that 70% of the American families could survive off of a single income. So what that also meant is that 50% of these families could own a car, they could buy a house, and they could pay for their children's education and save money to retire with the help of a pension, which is kind of going bye-bye. So then we move into the 60s. So it was never really stated, but in the 60s, we started losing production, quality, productivity. We were losing that to Europe and China. So basically what had happened in the 70s, in the starting of the 70s, America started printing more money, and they started loosening policies, and this was to help stimulate the economy. Well, this actually led to the ending of the dollar's link to the gold standard in 1971. So this was supposed to strengthen our dollar, and that's about what happened to it. So then, again, going back to the early 70s, we had a gas crisis. And, I mean, there were people in lines for miles just to get gas, and a lot of times they completely ran out of it. So
thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah. The American muscle car owners were like, man, this is insane. We can't afford to do this anymore. So then they started turning to foreign cars because they were more economical. And that's kind of when everything started to move at that process. Then we have an introduction of two-family incomes, and this was more in the later 70s, and that was to keep this American dream alive. So in the 80s, we have President Reagan, who slashed taxes, and he encouraged free trade, passed laws that would benefit large corporations, thinking that, this is going to help to stimulate everything. Basically, what happened at that point is this caused households to move up in tax brackets, which pay more taxes, and others to move down. And this was kind of the beginning of deterioration of the middle class. So then we go to our favorite, Bill Clinton, and one of his policy was every American has the right to own a house. This is where it gets fun. So at this time, banks were approving loans for people that normally would never get approved. Never. So what the banks started doing is they would start saying that, okay, so this house that may have been worth like 250, 300,000 is now going to be, 400 to 450,000. So with the loans and everything at this time, they started drawing out the loans to make it more affordable for these people, even though that the banks knew that these loans were eventually going to go into default, which they did. So years later, when these people, they're making these mortgage payments every single month, and this house is still not getting paid off. So a lot of them wanted to sell. So they had it appraised, and before they put it on the market, they took a look at everything. And with the appraisings, they were actually lower than what the actual payout on the loan would be. And that started our little housing crisis there. So as we move forward, we can't forget our 3 H's, which we had a really good conversation on one of these before we started. So your 3 H's are your house, which you have to have. You have to have some type of place to live. Whether it be owning or renting. You have higher education, which is astronomical at this point. And then we also have what we discussed earlier is healthcare. And that's a whole nother ball of wax that, yeah. So over the past 50 years, the average income has actually increased by 16%. The average home cost is up 190%. And then we jump to college tuition, which is now up 264% over the past 50 years. And all these numbers are actually from that same time span. So a lot of the research that I was doing is going back to the 70s. Everything was compared back to the 70s. The average median income was at $9,870. You might as well say around $10,000. And at that time, houses were roughly around $17,000, so it made it more affordable. Then we fast forward to 2018, where the income now has increased to $64,000. The average house cost is at $400,000, and these numbers just don't add up. You throw a car payment in there because you got to have a car. If you got, kids and everything, that's possibly 2 cars on top of your mortgage and everything else. And nothing ever lined up on that one. So that's when we all start falling into debt. So in the past 5 years, the middle class households have fallen from 61%, which is based in 1971, to 50% in 2021. So we have a large decrease in our money. So for the past 10 years, the wages of the middle class have not risen. Some of the other interesting facts, which I'm sure probably everybody has realized this at some point, is that 50% of the people in this country die with less than $10,000 in aggregate wealth. Over half the Americans die with credit debt. Their owning options at this point for, a lot of people, our owning options are limited. Their choices of lifestyle are limited because, you want to walk around with a Louis Vuitton purse, but you can't afford it. You're going to charge it, which is going to help to increase debt. So yeah, there was a lot of things going on here. And then you want to throw in the student debt, which is even crazier because the problem is a lot of people are, at least now, going to college to get a degree, and they want to work in that field that they went to get this degree in. It's hard finding a job in that degree in order to pay these loans back for the education. So we've got, a lot of people that are getting out of colleges that are graduating with, an 84,000, if not higher, debt just to go to that school. So, another viewpoint which I found pretty interesting on this is both the top 1% and middle class own assets. The middle class, we just don't own as much as the top 1%. So that means that the other 99% of us depend on the real economy and wage growth. So what I mean by that is you look at assets. So the 1%ers, when the Feds actually started dropping the rates. They did it 3 times where it was like next to nothing for finance. So the 1%ers actually went out and they bought more stuff. And we're talking businesses, housing, things like that. So they took advantage of this time to gain more. And when everything went back up again, the assets actually started to outpace the economy as far as growth goes. So good for them. The Feds at this point wanted to put a Band-Aid on this instead of fixing their true problem, which is actually debt. And that's including everywhere. That's, regular households, businesses, all this stuff. So that's where it gets a little tricky. The debt remained, and then that also suppressed the wage growth, because with the wages, it actually also goes on what we do with that GDP. So any type of business, things like that, the profit wasn't really there. So that means our wages are not really there either. So that's kind of where everything is starting to fall. The other thing too was the idea was the top 1% would be spending this growth money that they got with these rising in assets that they had, but it was fictitious. This is actually coming from Ben Bernanke. Remember that lovely gentleman who was he was then chairman of the Federal Reserve. And the stock market, the idea was the stock market was going to boost consumer wealth, which would also increase consumer confidence and get spending to start turning again, get that wheel moving. And then this would help to make higher profits and also continue to help those wages grow. However, this is a completely flawed scenario. It doesn't work that way. So what had happened is the asset prices went higher due to the lower interest rates, which increased liquidity. So basically what that means is the upper 1%, they could start to liquidate and make even more money off of the assets that they've had when they took advantage of everything, dropping into the gutter. The economy still has this ton of debt that still exists, and that's the issue. So instead of supporting the assets and actually helping to get the money started to flowing again, this is basically, I kind of missed the point, is what should happen is to help release the debt. So the 1%ers would actually start putting back into the economy, spending money in the economy, which would help everything else grow. The problem is it would be a little painful stretch for the top 1%ers putting money in, but in the long run, it's going to help everybody to grow and get to where we need again. So that was basically it, which is probably never going to happen. Asset prices, and the one that I was going with was homes, they increase at a faster rate than wages. And this is what's called gross unaffordability. And this is where, we come into debt. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, my generation, our generation, was actually introduced to these plastic things called credit cards. And what we could do at that point in time is we could actually purchase stuff technically without paying for it. We could pay over time, but the added lovely taxes and interest rates and everything go up. So instead of buying, $100 piece of clothing or whatever, you're now looking at, depending on how far you want it to stretch this out, I mean, you could be spending $130, $150 for that $100 piece that you ended up buying. So the long and short is that yes, the middle class is slowly starting to die out. I thought one of the interesting things when I was going through this is looking at the pyramid. You have the lower class at the bottom, the middle class, and then you have the top tier, which is that top 1%. One of the interesting things is Gary, I know I do as well. We like to write, and with every story, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So looking at that, you have the lower class, the middle class, in the top class. Now, with that being said, is they have started to dissect the middle class to make them like a lower middle class, and then you have a higher or upper middle class. So it's not, there's a label on everything with this, not just your middle class. And here we are. That's my rambling. If everybody's still awake out there.
Is this thing on? Is this?
Hashtag Dunkin' Donuts. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
I don't. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't know where to interject in that at all. I mean, we probably could have stopped at certain points and said, this, that, and the other. But man, you were just.
I was going.
You're on a roll.
You
We couldn't stop him.
It's
Rock.
frustrating.
And if we do, he hits us. He's worse than he looks.
Under the table. Exactly. I kick him under the table. But no, I mean, just going over this research, it's frustrating.
Well, the one thing, okay, the only thing I'm going to point out initially that popped in my head, and I understand that's off of research, but I'm going to speak from what I personally experienced is even in the 70s, both of my parents had to go to work. The neighbors next door. As a matter of fact, almost everybody in my neighborhood, both the husband and the wife worked.
Okay.
So there was no
Right.
stay-at-home mom. My mom did get to a point for a little bit of time that she stayed home
Right.
when we were going to school or whatever, but then she had to go back to work. But so I'm not sure that this research, I think that actually I kind of think that died out in the 50s. I think that was a Leave It to Beaver,
Sure.
June Cleaver, what
Sure.
the house. But I know my household, our next door neighbors, the ones right behind us, or everybody worked.
Oh yeah.
Everybody worked. The husband and wife both worked. So it kind of started then. I think it was a lot. Because I know you said in your research, and in the 70s that there was like the wife still stayed home or whatever, and it's like I didn't experience that.
Gotcha.
I didn't experience the stay-at-home mom who made the dinner and stuff like that. We had the babysitters, and stuff like that, and my neighbors did, and our neighbors did. So we didn't experience that.
Right. And in the 70s and 80s, that's where us latchkey kids came from.
I hate that word, latchkey.
Responsibility.
But I do remember vaguely having to wait even here in Fredneck, waiting to get in the long line to get gas. It's like, what the hell are we waiting in line for?
Right.
To get gas?
Yeah.
It's because Frederick at that time only had like 3 or 4 gas stations anyway. So that was.
So you waited in line to get gas, to run out of gas because you were waiting for gas.
Turn your car off.
Yeah.
Turn your car off. So that was that was my immediate thought when I heard the 70s, because in a lot of what I'll talk about is just from my personal
Sure.
experience, because there is the research, you have the facts and figures, but then some of it you got to gauge with your eyes.
Right.
It's like, well, what did I experience? What did I see, or
Sure.
what do I continue to see?
Absolutely.
So yeah, and there's a lot of people are stupid, including myself. But I want to say, before I pass this off to Cuz, let him get some stuff in. But it's like, I think a lot of what we see, we are our own worst enemy.
Yep.
People are our own worst enemy. We do this a lot of this shit to ourselves.
Yep. Agreed.
And everybody else is just going to let it. They're just going to let it happen because we're dumb enough to keep doing it. So I'll divulge. I'll get more into the weeds.
No, you did good. I was the one that I was the weed eater. I just went through everything. Sorry about that. I was on a roll.
No, you're fine. But I just think, like, looking at housing.
Right.
Houses are houses are crazy, especially in this area. I don't know where it is out there. If anybody watches out there, nobody looks like they're watching anyway. But around
this place is tame compared to a lot of other places.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But there again, it's a lot of it is based. Yes, it is economy based, obviously, but it's also based on demand. If there is still a demand, some of these people can put their house up for $500 million or $500,000, and you got people jumping at the bit to buy it because they want to be. I want to be like be like the Joneses.
Right.
I got to move in that neighborhood. I got to move, and as long as there's the demand, the housing prices are going to continue to go up. As long as there's supply or lack thereof.
Right.
So let's take that into the equation. Let's remove supply. Just say how half the houses get taken off the market. Well, then you've only got a handful. Well, there you go. Then you get the bidding war.
Right.
And but can you imagine if people just said, I ain't paying that damn price for a house, and everybody started saying, I'm not paying that.
Right.
Then guess what? Eventually somebody said, all right, I'll drop the price, which back in the day, 10, 20, 30 years ago, that's kind of what happened in some cases. People were like putting their house on the market for like $500,000. And then it would sit on the market for like 6 months because nobody's like interested. And they're like, all right, we're dropping the price. Where you got to drop the price.
Right.
And then people are like, okay, now we can talk.
Absolutely.
But now no, they're actually betting against each other. And so somebody, that same house, it's like for 500,000. Now it's actually going up because their bidding war starts between these asshats. They're like, oh, I really want that house. Well, I want that house. Well, I'll pay you an extra $50,000. I'll pay you extra $100,000. And it's like, okay, okay. So guess what? As long as that keeps happening, the real estate's still going to keep going up. And why? Because we did it to ourselves. If we would just sit there and say, I'm not paying that kind of money for that house, the price would go down. But we can't do that.
That's correct.
We have to be in the status. We have to be in the 2-story house, in the nice development, with the manufactured lawn or the shrubberies. So it's and as long as that happens, and it's like you can go out to West Virginia and still find houses for a really nice 2-story house for probably about half the price that you can get them here.
Right, but then I guess the question.
But there's not the demand.
Right, and that's the thing is,
The demand dictates a lot of the price structure.
Absolutely. Gary,
so
you want to jump
so
in?
you're disputing what he you're disputing what he just said.
No, not really.
Well, because if the demand is up, and the demand has to come from the middle class.
Well, not necessarily. Well, it depends on just what strata of middle class, but yes. So,
I'll disagree with you on the 70s too. People didn't have to go to work. People decided to go to work because they wanted all the extra money.
Well, that's true too.
That's what that is.
Right. They had to have stuff.
They had to have stuff.
Everybody wanted to get stuff.
And that was my thing. I mean, the whole point of back in the day when there was a one income, and the man, usually it was the man that went and got, the wife stayed home. They did. Well, I don't even have a problem. Right, but I don't even have a problem with that. The problem is, so if I'm going, so I have friends, God bless them, had a daughter, went to a private expensive school, like $50,000 a year. All right, 4-year degree, got out, and ended up going and working at State Farm. Good job, but there's other people there that went to freaking community college and had the same damn job, making the same damn money.
Right, with probably 1/3 the cost of what it was for that.
Right. So the point is the thing is that you have people that are. I think people just need to understand. Like, for instance, getting education. I still think education is important. You don't have to drop $200,000 effing dollars to get a fucking degree.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Like with our kids, unless they got a full ride scholarship, you didn't have a choice. You were going to community college for 2 years.
Right.
Both of you.
Right.
Right? It was not a choice unless you're going to pay for it or unless you had a free ride somewhere in the scholarship.
Go to the military. Get
Or
that
military.
GI Bill.
Whatever. But the point is but people have, I need a degree, and now they want the government to come and
Pay them out.
and pay them out. And I can tell you right from a middle class family, the part of where the middle class has gone, part of that thing is like, say for instance, my kids and getting scholarships, grants, or any of this other stuff, they're not even eligible for it. So there's a lot of people that will say, "Oh, I'm not even going to get married," because that's where I'm going to go with my thing is marriage. Here in a second, but a lot of things is they won't even get married because they're not eligible. Because if you make you make that slight hair too much, you don't qualify for shit, right? And you could have somebody, and again, God bless them, you could have somebody that's completely, their parents are complete pieces of shit, done nothing their whole life. They haven't really done anything, but they have, so when they have like so much money and opportunities, because I've already gone through this. I just went through it a couple months ago, and I'm getting ready to go through it again with the FAFSA and the grants and everything else. They're not eligible for 75% of any of the shit, scholarships or grants. And so my thing is a lot of times when they say, the middle class family is the one that has to struggle to go through, so I can see why people are trying to slide out of the middle class. Like whenever somebody says people of that are poor or not as well affluent and this and the other can't go to college, I'll throw that fucking bullshit flag every fucking time, and I'm a little bit upset because I don't have freaking $80,000 sitting over here. I've busted my ass all my damn life, but when middle class seems to get effed every single which way you can, you're not making $500,000 a year, so you don't get all these tax breaks, right?
Right.
But you're also not making $50,000 a year where you get so many free rides.
Right.
And so so there's so many people that are either not getting married because then you get the marriage penalty tax. Thanks, Joe. Fuckhead. So people aren't getting married anymore. So their income is not getting together as it would be what do you call it? For metrics. Right. So they would stay single. They might be living together and they might kind of be pulling their money, but it's not being necessarily counted that way. So therefore, when everybody's looking at metrics and all the algorithms, well, that's a single woman. That's a single guy.
Right.
So that middle class is gone, right in the shitter. And also, by the way, now that I'm on my soapbox, now we're going to talk about the $20 minimum wage. All right. Now we're going to have people that work at McDonald's are trying to, they can't live. Well, now you're trying to shoot somebody flipping burgers. You're going to try to shoot him into the damn middle class now because you get him $20 a freaking hour.
Right. But the thing with that though is by raising that minimum wage up to $20 an hour, the middle class, again, I don't eat fast food a lot, but when I do, it's going to cost me more.
Way more.
And the biggest thing is that I've noticed a lot of these, like McDonald's and Burger King and places like that, even,
Duncan.
These guys actually do, so I can order online with the app, or I can walk in, go up to a computer screen and put in what I want, and then just walk over and get it off of, the station that they have there without ever having to do with a human being at all. I mean, it takes payment. It does everything right then and there. Right. So, yeah, you want to raise a minimum wage. Well, also the unemployment is going to start to rise because you're not going to need those workers anymore.
Well, the part of it also is when they look at like unemployment statistics, they don't look at the people who have left the workforce.
That is correct.
And I don't mean, and I'm not even, well, I'm not even talking about retiring. I mean where people's like, well, shit. Well, especially like on the ass end of COVID or a little bit of ever. Hell, people were making money hand over fist. I'm
Right.
like, why the hell am I going to go back to work? I'm making twice what I was making over there.
Exactly.
And part of my issue is like when they keep talking about raising, or they've raised it in some parts. They keep talking about raising the minimum wage because they say, well, somebody working at McDonald's can't support themselves. That's not supposed to be a what do you call it when you not a substantial? What do you call it?
Supportive.
Support? Yeah, I'm looking for another word.
It's not a career.
Yeah, but it's not something that's supposed to support. Support a
Exactly.
It's supposed to be a gateway job.
a family,
Yeah.
right?
It's a
Unless
gate-
you're like manager, like some of the managers actually.
Oh
make
my
some
God,
fat
they
money.
make sick money.
Like Sheets. If Sheets, I was talking to one of the dude that was like he was a store manager.
Right.
Hell, this son bitch is making almost $90,000 a year as a store manager. He says if I get regional, it's $150.
But they got to deal with a lot.
Granted, they do got to deal. I mean, it's like my wife. I mean, she doesn't kind of make that money, but she's got to deal with bullshit as a teacher. But there are some
Right.
benefits as a teacher.
Sure.
But my point is that if you keep raising this minimum wage, and the cost to produce the same products
Right.
and everything else is not what do we call it? It's not tracking with that, like you were talking about. Like you see how the wages went up,
Right.
but everything else that went up, or everything else with it, went up this much, like
Right.
a house. Like the percentage is not even close.
No.
Like out here in Frederick, I'll just say real quick, you can't rent a 2-bedroom house for less than $3,000. My mortgage is not even that high.
No. And that's the same thing with apartments too.
And how's that middle class? Is middle class now? So how I would like to see how experts, and I've did research too, but I like to see how they really realistically define the middle class based on the economy and everything that it takes to actually, because now, just real quick, when everybody decided they wanted to be a 2-income household, a lot of people did it that way because they just wanted extra stuff. Nowadays, it's a freaking necessity.
Absolutely.
Because inflation and everything else has gotten so out of hand.
Absolutely.
It is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they just want, and I'm not going to get political on this, but I will say, everybody's just like, well, it's just the state of the world, this and that. No. It's because of effing policies and one NAFTA. Let's talk about NAFTA real quick. NAFTA completely fucked us. They're, we want to get free trade or whatever. We'll give all these other countries whatever. Okay.
What about
Really?
us? Yeah.
Yeah, what about us? No, then all the shit went to Mexico. All the shit went everywhere else. Now China, everything went to China.
Right.
And now they just took us, and we're standing there looking like a bunch of idiots.
But see, a lot of that
And
too.
all the manufacturers gone.
But see, a lot of that too. There again, a lot of that too was when NAFTA opened up. That gave companies like that were making shit in the United States. It gave them carte blanche to sit there and say, well, why am I paying? Why do I have to deal with the union and pay this schmo to make a car $30 an hour when I can go down to Tijuana or go down to Monterey and get some Mexican Pete guys that'll do it for half the price, if not cheaper than that. So guess what? HP, you have like Hewlett Packard, Volkswagen was another one. You had a bunch of auto manufacturers all put their plants over down in Mexico. And then on top of that, so then now you have all these customer service places going over to
Pakistan
Asia
and
Pakistan and India and stuff like that. Why? Because these companies are, Fortune 500 companies aren't hiring America. They don't want to deal with They don't want to deal with the shit.
Well, it's not even so. Yeah, it's not even so much that.
But
It's
see,
just
well, not only
it's
that, well,
it's
it's-
pennies on the dollar that I can make shit for.
right.
Well, exactly, and it's between that, and also gaming the system. You got these companies gaming the system. Well, if I have this piece over here, this piece over here, this piece over here, then I get a tax break from this, and this and I don't have to pay taxes with India. I don't have to worry about it with this.
And not only that, if you go back and look after that happened, I can't remember what there was a thing. It wasn't like a project something, but it was like a whole thing where they went and did this investigations, and you saw how many people were invested in these companies to where they enacted this bill, and I'm talking about Congress, and how many of them were involved with this shit, right? Before they really started nailing down, the whole insider trading bullshit, this and the other, right? So technically, I guess it wasn't necessarily, technically it was, but based on how it worked with like stock market stuff, it wasn't necessarily quote unquote insider trading. But they passed that shit knowing that they had money. Go look at so many of these people in Congress.
There's a website.
Congressmen and senators in the 90s, and Joe Biden, one of them. And there was a lot of other people. There's a lot of Republicans too, but a lot of them had fucking hooks. And watch to see how their income grew in the 90s. Over the NAFTA, sorry.
Right.
Well, you don't even have to go, and let's fast forward it to the pandemic, when all this shit started coming up with the pandemic was over the horizon. Guess who was putting their money in 3M stock and all these companies that were going to have to start mass producing all these masks?
Well, Pfizer for the
it's funny.
Moderna.
It's funny how everybody in Congress all of a sudden started putting all their money in these companies, and they're rolling around like fat cats. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Then it's like, a month later. But see, that's the thing. Congress can't. We're not insider trading. We're not. And actually, they can't be tried for insider trading. There's a clause, I think, in Congress that they cannot be. You can't go after them. The FEC or whatever they call it,
the
Federal FTC
Exchange Commission.
Yeah, they can't go after Congress.
But my point in all this is that the fact that you have all these other outside, not influences, but people that are forcing it to where the middle class gets shrunk tighter and tighter, because now you have people who are identifying. And I say identifying is like they're not getting married, or they're not including their income together. So they're not getting married. So now I have an individual who's only making, say, $60,000 a year or whatever it is. Let's just say they're now in the lower bracket, right? So a lot of people are not getting married, and I had like statistics on marriage, where the marriage. Actually, let me bring it up just real quick. So it's like middle class has decreased considerably since 1971. So 71 middle class was 61.50. I think you even actually said that one. Upper middle class has gone up. You can see it's 21%, and U.S. the lower income is now 29%. But so here's the marriage statistics. I think this is from I think I locked up. I forget where I forgot to put the thing in. Anyway, so this is rate of marriage, right? Now look, shit. Damn, like ready for 50, man, people were booming.
Yeah, that was
after
the war.
During the war. That was right before the war.
Yeah,
everybody was like, hurry up, marry me before you go out. All these gold, gold digging women.
So this is like right before. This is probably when everybody got home.
Right.
And they just started snatching up.
Well,
and
that was
got married.
Right.
That was the baby boom.
Then you saw looking at this is probably in the 60s, because remember the free love and shit. I'm not doing the government stuff. I'm not getting married. That's for the government. That's for the man. So look, they dipped down. Then we started early 70s. It kind of went back up. Then 75 dropped down, went back up again. Now look, ever since probably the late 70s, early 80s, we were kind of going a little bit, but then all of a sudden, blam, 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 blam. Then we kind of teared it off a little bit. Now we're at the lowest rate ever. And part of what establishes the middle class, and people can say all the bullshit they want. Part of the big thing establishing the middle class is the nuclear family, and part of the nuclear family obviously is marriage. That's gone down. You got people having kids out of wedlock and this, that, and the other. So now they classify as lower income, because I'm a single mother or a single father. I'm only making, say, $60,000, but that puts me in a bracket to where I can get all these. I can get all these benefits.
Right.
So it's lack of marriage. It's lack of people wanting to work anymore. Right. Even after the pandemic, even people our age just said, "Fuck it, I'm going," and didn't go back to work. I'm like, so it's that. I think the morality's gone down. I think again the middle class almost stood for the nuclear family, like the moral and ethical kind of base. We've taken that and chucked it way out the window.
Absolutely.
And now this is part of it. Crime, I think, if you had more quote unquote middle class families that were together, that were bringing up the kids, you'd have less of that. So I think the middle class, or the disappearing middle class, I think has led to so many different aspects: ethical, moral, economical, you name it.
Sure.
And then now we got just we have just a bunch of individuals
Yep.
who no longer classify as middle class because they're all individuals now, and
Yeah.
but they can just reap the benefits, and the ones that are struggling to stay as a middle class are getting fucked because they don't get any benefits of staying together and staying together as a family. It's almost like a joke anymore. It's
Right.
almost like, why would you do that? And people are catching shit because, oh, well, your parents are still together and working hard to kind of keep your family together. Oh, I didn't have that. Now that's something that they blame people for.
Right. Right. Now,
For fuck's sake.
that slide that you had on there, I want to say that like the late 70s, like right around in here is when your divorce rate started to kick in. You notice as it goes up right here and then it dips down again. I want to say that's when, because there was a big boom in broken marriages at that point in time. I know mine personally was. So yeah, and that's when you
Yours
had
was
this
what?
Mine was a broken family.
Oh, your family.
Yeah,
I
right.
was gonna say, well, dude, you were married in the 60s.
Yeah, I'm old, but not that
Oh
old.
yeah, my family. There was a lot of broken families
Sure.
back then.
Yeah, I can't remember hardly any of the people that I hung out with as a kid. There may have been like one or two, but for the most part, everybody, you were either with your mom or you lived with your dad, but they weren't together.
I had both.
I think the other thing too, to pigtail on what you've got, is now if you notice, they're partners. Everybody starts to relate to people as a partner. I worked with a couple that were married, and the thing of it is when it came to insurance, it was actually cheaper for them to, like, her to go on her own insurance plan and him to go on his own insurance plan. But if you did it as a couple, then it actually almost tripled.
Yeah.
For that price. So, and then it's one of those things that you got to have it, because if you don't, you're going to have to pay a penalty on it. But then if you do, you're going to have to pay out forever or go with the lower insurance plan, and you're still going to get screwed in the end.
And with Wendy there, I agree with you. But just like I said, just like we've already stated, these congressmen and people and everything else, they're not going to pass any of that shit because they're the ones that are getting rich.
Right.
Go look at any senator or congressman or lady or whatever you want to call it. Look at their income when they came in and then when they exited or after they've been in there a while. See what their freaking income is. It's gone exponentially high. I mean, like, not like this, like this.
Right.
Well,
And that's why they're not passing any of this. We should go flat tax.
You don't even have to go that far. There's mayors out in certain large cities, like especially in California, that are making more than the president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen? How does that happen where a mayor and a city council, and the reason why I said California is because we actually did a study a couple of years ago in one of my college classes about it, where like the mayor, and we're not even talking like Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, the large cities. We're talking about one of the medium-sized cities, and the mayor was making like $350,000-$400,000 a year, and it's like, whoa!
Yeah, well,
it's like,
what an 800.
How did you get that? Well, of course they vote themselves.
Sure.
Well, that is, but then when you got an 800 square foot house that costs you $500,000,
Oh yeah. Well, but it doesn't. Go back to your slide before this, because I want to. It's like kind of based on what Wendy. Because one of the things that I know that hit me with this is, so if the middle class is disappearing, which in some aspects it is or whatever, but I think what it is I don't necessarily think My personal opinion, I don't necessarily think it's disappearing, but it's breaking, it's segmenting. You have the lower, like you said, you have lower, everybody wants to say lower, working, high, whatever.
Right.
But look at these numbers. So the between 71 and 21, which is what, 40, 50, that's 50 years. Between 50 years, the lower income only increased 29%.
Correct.
So that there's really not in statistics or whatever, you probably within the plus and minus, there's really not a whole lot of people that are getting poorer. See, that's the key. Not a lot of people are getting poorer. However, look at the 21% in the upper income compared to 14. So it appears that the middle, so you got that middle income it appears that more people actually have gotten richer over the past 50 years, according to this, than they did poorer. So that's another thing. So that's what happens over, let's say, in the Middle East. In the Middle East, there is absolutely, over in Asia too, you really don't have a middle class at all. That never even existed. In the Middle East, you're either filthy, stinking rich, or you are dirt poor. You have a house that has no windows, no doors, or whatever. The base I was at, it's like the house you had on this side. You had houses that had open windows and doors, and they were like sleeping on stone, on concrete. Then over here, you had the oil, the farmer with his oil with his 10 daughters, running around or whatever. But there was no in between.
Right. And
that's why they hate. That's why they can't. That's why they're always fighting. They hate each other. But going back to this is interesting because I think now you're also seeing more people there again. I want to be like the Joneses. I want more. And now we're getting also. You have people are just getting into money more than they did 50 years ago. And then the only other point I'm going to think, and I think this is one of the biggest things that gets. We, as in America, are financially ignorant. And I think it starts in the education system. We do not teach our kids anything about finances. We do not teach our kids anything about how the GDP comes about. We don't teach them what inflation is. We don't teach them how. We don't. It's just very glibbed over, and they have no clue. That's like what Cuz was saying about the $20, the increase in minimum wage. Anytime you have an increase in a mass salary like that, it's like everything else is going to go up in price.
Who's going to take the hit? The company?
No, they're not. No,
we are. We
they're
got
either.
that.
Well,
the company's not going to take a hit.
Or what's happening now is either they're going to raise the prices or they're going to start firing people.
Yeah, well,
I can't afford you anymore. Be gone.
I think it's going to be a little bit of both. Not. They're going to lay you off. We don't fire people anymore. But I like I say, I think because of going to the different like computer systems and things like that, I don't have to have somebody physically at the front counter to take my order.
Yeah, you're going to see more.
I've already done it on the computer screen over there. I'm just waiting for the guy to bring it out, guy or girl to bring it out and say, "Here you go."
Well, now they're even getting the machines in the back that are actually making the sandwiches now.
Right.
You just have to have one person just to make sure the machine's not malfunctioning. You're just watching them burp, burp.
So you know what's funny about this whole thing, right? And this probably doesn't have anything to do with middle class, but I'm going to throw it up anyway. So when you have let's just say like McDonald's or Woodset the other, right? That have their own their philosophy was just get the burger, get the burgers out, this, that, and the other, right? And they of course they sell a lot because they just people are just going to them,
sure,
this, that, and the other. And McDonald's is one of the biggest ones that are implementing or starting to really implementing like the touch screens and whatever else. But the one place that's still thriving that has actually bypassed everybody who is not even close to that is what? In the fast food business.
I would have to say Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A. What is Chick-fil-A's biggest deal? Well, except they got good chicken. What's their big draw?
What's that?
The customer service.
You're right.
The interaction.
Yes.
The nicety. I can go there and not have a fucking sandwich just
right
smudged together, smash in the bag, and throw it into my face.
No, you're right.
Right. So when you have and they've bypassed everybody.
Sure.
They've shot past. I don't know if Burger King was ever up in there, but anyway, they shot past Burger King, McDonald's, everybody. It's the number one fast food, right? They still have not implemented the same stuff that McDonald's or some of these other ones have done.
Right.
Right? And they're even closed on Sunday for shit's sake.
Right.
And they're still kicking everybody's ass. I mean, considerably, right? And so I guess kind of my thing is, and if you think about Chick-fil-A as a fast food restaurant, it is kind of the representative, or it's kind of the icon of like the middle class.
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
So I think, and it's because of whatever. So the middle class used to be like Chick-fil-A.
Right.
Right. And when you start chipping away at it and make it and start making the middle class like McDonald's or Burger King, whatever else, that's when you start losing out. And people seem to think, well, this is it. No, you'll see it. It'll and every major civilization has fallen, and it's fallen because of they've chipped away at the ethical, moral, and the what makes them what they were.
Right. 100%.
And that's I think is the biggest issue with the middle class disappearing, is because we have changed as a society, and especially in the U.S., we have changed what makes up middle class, and it's not like something we want to be like that anymore. I want to do my own thing. Really, go ahead and do your own thing. And where's it going to lead you?
Right. Now, going back to the Chick-fil-A thing, not that it deals with anything middle class, but the whole thing with the, that whole customer service interaction. People don't take pride in their jobs like we did when we were coming up and working at McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, that type of thing. We took pride in it. We didn't sympathize, but we would empathize with people. And that, I think, was different. We had fun doing those types of jobs. And I just think now the people coming up is like, who cares?
Well, and you're 100% right. And I think also the biggest thing, too, is how these people are getting treated, too, is also leading in conjunction to why they're like, well, why? Back when we worked, overall, most of the customer interaction that we dealt with, because we all came from service industry. I was retail. I know you were fast food. Were you fast food?
Yeah, I was fast food.
So it's like most, probably 90% of the customers we dealt with, 95% of the customers were great.
Yes.
It was good customer interaction. We didn't have a whole lot of idiots that we had to deal with. Now, you go any given time to a sit-down restaurant where they're getting up and you have certain groups, and I'm not going to mention names, millennials, that don't leave tips anymore, or they're complaining about everything. And you go to department stores now where they're told, let the shoplifters go, let them do this, don't do anything, and if you try to help somebody, then they get their heads bit off, and they have no backing from management because corporate is telling them, oh, no, you can't, no, don't do that. So you have this whole thing where people are allowed to walk out with shit, and your customers are telling off their employees, and as an employee, you try to interact and do something about it, then they get fired.
Right.
So it's like, so do I want to be in the service industry now? Oh, hell no. Because if you're going to treat me, if I know that my immediate boss might have my back, but the person behind him might be like, no, you got to get rid of him.
Right.
Because he did this, and the way people treat each other now, and just in general, out in a public setting, and overall, there's still that civility that exists. But I know at restaurants,
it's waning.
Right, I know
significantly.
Talking to various waitresses and waiters at restaurants, and they will sit there and tell you, "Yeah, I had about 5 tables skip out. Didn't leave a tip today."
Right.
Or they're like, we had like 2 tables that walked out on their bill. And then they wonder why. Then when you mention the thing that's like, well, you have to pay up front, and people are like, oh, no.
Right.
It's like, well, what are you going to do? It's like this whole. So, working in the service industry.
So I know when I worked at McDonald's, right? I had my grill. Yeah, she's gonna want. We're gonna address that in a second. When I came back, because my buddy, and everybody else worked the front. I don't want to deal with the damn people, right? I worked the grill. But when I got back there, don't be fucking with my grill.
Right.
I need you to get the hell out of my damn way. Especially when the lunch rush came, I had that whole grill loaded with like quarter pounders and regular ones, man. And I'm taking care of business, man. Get the hell out of my damn way.
Right.
Nowadays, people just like, they could care less 2 seconds. But then what you're saying, that leads into, as they get older, and then as you get into the middle class, you have that work ethic to say, okay, I could take some shortcuts, but that's just not the way I'm going to do it.
Right.
I'm going to work as middle class, and I'm going to do what I need to do to get. But now we got into the point where government and these programs of society are saying, you're an idiot, right? Because everybody else has got a freaking hustle going on. Your stupid ass is sitting here, but go ahead and do that because I know you're paying for everybody else.
Right.
And then people are just getting fed up with this bullshit, and they're just like,
yeah, and
like they said, the school thing right there.
Yep.
You can't get any assistance. You're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about being ethical now, which, in my opinion, I think being ethical anymore is a thing of the past. Doing the right thing when nobody is looking. And,
yeah, who are you when nobody's looking?
Right, and that goes back to the middle class. So why is it declining? Well, just
ethics.
Like you said.
Well, see,
Ethics, morals, and that goes to what Wendy's asking.
Right.
How do you know what the first step is? I think you need to get. Well, I mean, I'll just say, well, for one, and this is my thing. Even if you're not spiritual, if you're not a Christian, and then that's fine. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, I think God needs to come back in schools. I think God needs to come back in society, because even if you're not a believer, and that's fine. Even when God was, or it was implemented in so many things, there was that it was that measure, right? And even if I wasn't a complete believer, and I still, it was in front of you,
right,
as to what was right and what's wrong. Nowadays, you can't tell me what the hell that is.
Right.
You got like I would get on the whole transgender thing, giving like a 10-year-old drugs that chemically castrate them. Are you out of your fucking mind?
Yeah, and when I was 10 years old, I was more concerned about going outside playing baseball and things like that. Mm-hmm. I could give two shits less about that.
So I think if you fix the tax system, just do a freaking flat tax, no loopholes, no tax shelters, no all this other bullshit. Everybody pays the same, including freaking poor people.
Yep.
I mean, not poor, but like people are on like lower class or maybe lower middle class.
Right.
Because there are 42% of people in this country, in this U.S., do not pay zero taxes. That right there is bullshit.
And that's part of this group right here, and of course that's probably most of
and that group too.
Yeah.
So if we do a flat tax 70%, boom, I don't kick up into the 28% or the 32% tax bracket, because they've even done studies that when people have or when people have more access to their money or are able to keep more of their money, they've noticed that the GDP goes up. They invest more into products and consumerism.
Sure.
But charities, they said that more is a boom in people donating to charities when they're able to keep their money. They are more they're more generous with their money than when you're locking them down with taxes and this, that, and the other.
Right.
And I can bring up 50 million freaking studies on it or metrics on it.
Right. Right.
And it's like, so to answer Wendy's question, I think fix that tax system. Let's get some term limits and for some of these freaking senators and congressmen and these mother effers. And I think we need to put God back. We need to put some ethics and morals back into society for F's sake.
And I agree. Going to Wendy's question, I think there's two major things. One is the being ethical, But I think the biggest thing is we need to remove that debt. You know, you hear about, oh, we have $1 trillion in debt. When the hell are you ever going to pay it back? You're never going to pay that back. And besides the fact, I think we're the only country in the world that has a deficit.
Right, yeah. I mean, and I won't even, if you could look at some of these, like the bill they just passed. Oh my gosh, if you looked into that damn thing, it would blow your mind to see what was in there. But the problem is, again, it gets down to the government, Congress and everything. You're a big developer in my state. You're like, hey, Gary, I need, blah, blah, blah. So I'm gonna write something in the bill, right, that nobody else is gonna see because the bill's freaking 1,000 pages. Right. But I'm gonna have it in there, and guess what? Boom, you just got hooked up with a big old government subsidy to do something else. That's that's one of the biggest fucking issues we got.
Yeah, you want my, $500 homes that I'm going to build in your state. Well, what's in it for me? Why would I build there? Well, here you go.
Well, they're notorious for putting riders on a bill. So you could have something that everybody agrees on, both the Republicans, Democrats. Well, let's say aid to Israel or something like that, or so it's like, okay, everybody's like, all right, we're on board with this, but then everybody's in their little side committees. Well, let me add this. Right. Let me add this attachment. Let me put this rider on here. So if the bill gets approved, all these riders get approved also.
Right.
And if you don't like it, well, then it gets declined. It go back to committee, and they're like, well, who's going to be the one to sit there and say we're not going to let it go through? And then it comes up. It's like, well, so and so
voted against
it because
Israel.
Yeah, they want all the Jews to die, and it's like, well, no, that's not the point. It's like these lines right here where Aunt Fanny's farm gets $1.4 billion for planting daisies.
Right. Well,
what does that have to do with? Well, she's a very good farmer, and she makes nice daisies. Well, I'm not giving her $1.4 billion.
Well, and that's the thing is, if the three of us were in Congress, we agree that okay, we're going to pass this bill. Well, if we get together on a Saturday, and we get this bill together, right? We go through what we're going to approve it for, and then we give it to the underlings. So on Monday, because they worked on it in the weekend, Monday I'm going to get a 1,000-page document with the neon light that says this is what the bill is, but we're gonna approve this on on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Who the hell's going to read through 1,000 pages and dissect that whole entire thing? I know that they have underlings on it, but
Or you could go with the Pelosi configuration, whereas we have to pass it to know what's in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, pass it first, and we'll read it afterwards.
You're right.
Stupid. So that's my thing is that to me, like that thing right there, that term limits, getting rid of some of these jackasses. I've been like, vote me in. I only got 4 years because all I got to do is 4 years and I get to retirement.
Exactly.
Right? Vote me for 4 years. I'll go here and write all this shit up, and this and the other, and I'll expose all this crap, and then I don't get elected to the next. I'm on the pension plan now.
Right.
Kiss my ass.
Right. And I think the biggest thing that
I'll go work with these think tanks.
There you go.
Afterwards.
I think that one of the biggest things that we're touching on, but we're not saying it, is accountability. I think if every American citizen.
That's a 4-letter word now. It doesn't even exist anymore.
Right. If there was accountability for everybody, I think that would make a difference too. And I think that's one of the big factors that would kind of help the middle class stay where they are. Or, at least to grow them and get back to where we need to be at.
So you see where we had the upper income? Now, this is not the only factor in this.
Sure.
But back in the day, there was a lot more regulating, or we had a lot more about what say rich could do to actually, either do with their income or what they could do. Nowadays, see this upper income is like we just discussed. You got freaking Congress and Senate and senators in there. What do they make, like $250? If you make $250 a year, how the hell are you worth freaking $100 million?
Exactly.
So the thing is, they're not. So that you got the we call it the coyote or the fox in the hen house, right? Eating all the. That's why you're getting so much upper income. It's because nobody's regulating that shit anymore like they used to, because the people that are supposed to be regulating the shit are the ones that are a lot of them are being added to this upper income bracket.
Sure. And, you know, that's the old saying is that the rich keep getting richer. Well, they are, because they were the ones that, again, when everything started dipping as far as your interest rates and everything, they were in a position to take advantage of that. And, you know, for the middle class people, we weren't a we weren't a,
and along with along with foreign entities as well.
Yeah, and I'm not one of these big, kissing ass of all the corporate people and stuff. But it's not all this straw man, this evil corporate whatever in this thing, and he's screwing everybody. It's the people making the decisions that are that a lot of the ones that are the ones that are getting screwed by.
Right. And
I mean, because at least if you're a part of a corporation, at least you're employing people.
Right.
Exactly.
That's the thing. That's the key right there.
Well,
is they're the ones that are actually employing.
Yeah, because they're taking risks. They're investing the money.
Right.
If you're not doing that, then who is? Somebody that's poor is not going to give you a job and pay you.
Right. Well, I mean, the other thing too, we have to look at like your Jeff Bezos, and there's hundreds of them out there. So each year we get to hear how much this guy makes. Right. And, he's gone a long way. And then you look at how many people he employs and what the pay rate is. I would be, pissed.
Then read the story on the Amazon warehouse sweatshop they got going on.
Right. And I mean,
but see, that's way beneath. See, that's what people don't realize. He's up here.
Right.
The warehouse is like at the bottom. That's your entry level bottom or whatever. He is so filtered from what's going on down there, but everybody wants to blame him.
Right. Well, that's the thing too, is like, if he's making that kind of money and I'm getting paid what, $17 an hour if I'm lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wait a minute. I'm helping him to achieve his dream, but he's not helping me achieve my dream as to buying a house, as to buying that new Mercedes-Benz. So that is part of the problem as well, is you've got the top 1% that are killing it. Again, good for them. They busted their ass, or they were born into money, things like that, but good for them. But there's the rest of us that are helping them to be that billionaire or whatever, but we're not benefiting from it.
Well, there again,
right? But then again, it goes to the market, because part of why he, and again, I'm not defending anybody that's
sure,
but part of the reason why he's worth so much is because he implemented a service. And he got to the point where you could even go on Amazon and buy stuff cheaper or maybe not cheaper, but maybe the same or more conveniently than you go to Walmart for.
Right.
Because you had to go in there and then you see like two fat redneck chicks fighting over a fan.
Well,
when I could just sit there and go point and click, and I could have something tomorrow or the next couple of days.
Well, if you notice, Walmart's now like that. If a Walmart has Walmart Plus, and if you go on Walmart Plus, and there's a Walmart store around and they've got it in stock, you go in there, boom, in 2 hours it's at your or whatever, it's at your house.
Right.
But they implemented that because of Amazon.
Well,
because it's like it's like this whole, well, there again, it's demand.
Right. But the other thing too is it's about the choices that we make. Just like you were stating with the middle class, we're in the position that we are because of our choices. We want the big house. We want the things that we can't afford, but we go after it. So now I'm in debt. I want a new car just because this new Jeep just came out. I want that. Well, now I've just created more debt for myself. I can afford the payments over 7 years. This whole 7-year thing, 72 months is newer, We never had that when I was growing. You had 5 years. You were paying this thing off in 5 years, whether you liked it or not.
Yeah, we aren't giving you 6.
Yeah,
so,
but
now it's like 7, 10.
Right.
So the interest rates is like, hey,
I want to mortgage my car.
But see, that new Jeep back then might have cost you $12,000.
Right, but it's still expensive.
It was still expensive, but maybe it was like, whatever of your debt to ratio, whatever, maybe it was like 75%. Nowadays, that same Jeep or model, whatever,
Sure.
today might be 112% of debt to net ratio or the income ratio,
Right.
because things have gotten the percentage of increase has skyrocketed in the last, I don't know how many, couple years. I mean, ridiculously. I mean,
But see, the thing that kind of harping back to what I said before, but the reason why that is because people will pay that price. If nobody wanted to pay $125,000 for that Jeep, that price ain't going to stay $125,000.
no, but
It's eventually going to start coming down. So as long as society in general it insists on, I want that Jeep. I don't care how much it is. Oh, I want one too. Oh, I want one too. And next thing you know, they're like, well, why are we going to lower the price when I've got all these people right here that want one?
Right.
And you're coming into me bitching about how expensive this thing is. It's like, well, then go get the middle size.
Yeah, but the point is, I can make the Jeep, but I can't make that Jeep what I could. I couldn't make it for the price I could not even 3 years ago.
Well, that's true, too.
Because
the
everything
cost
has
of
gone through the
everything
freaking roof because everybody's, this, that, and the other, and we got inflation going out the ass.
Right.
Don't even get me into the freaking gas and oil and shit, right? And they give all these subsidies to these green companies and everything else. Yeah, we need to get going, right? Green companies, but guess what? Guess who's doing the major part of research and development into other energies? It's the gas companies.
Yep.
It's the oil companies, right? Green energy is just like giving it to China, and then they go tits up in like year and a half, and Obama gave them like $800 billion in subsidies.
Right.
Not one of those companies is still in existence. Not one.
Right. Now,
Don't get me started on that shit.
Going back to the Jeep and consumerism, the thing of it is like, I'm a dealer. I'm a Jeep dealer. You're a Jeep dealer. You're a Jeep dealer. Jeep, no offense. We're just using you as an example. But if that Jeep, I'm going to sell it for $58,000 because that's what the MSRP is on this Jeep is $58,000. Why would you sell it lower, and why would you sell it higher? We've already set the market at $58,000, so you're going to lower it, right? Because you're thinking I'm going to get more customers to buy this Jeep. But what happens is you are infecting the market because we have people that are willing to spend $58,000. Now you, on the other hand, you're going to sell it higher.
I'm in California. I'm gonna sell it for double.
Right, but you're willing to sell it lower, so I can go to him, which I'm going to get a deal. But the market's already set at $58,000. So why do you want to devaluate at that point in time?
Have you noticed that it used to be when you go get a car, or especially a new car, you'd have to plot like a whole day for it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was a whole day event. You go in, you find, look around or whatever, find or whatever, and you find it. Then you start haggling.
Yes.
Then the whole haggle. Nowadays, if you go to certain lots, you see what the price is right there on that car?
Yep.
That's the price you're going to pay.
Exactly.
Have a nice day. And
Right.
there's no haggling anymore. None.
But
unless they have like the manufacturer has a special refund thing or $2,000 off. Fitzgerald, you go to Fitzgerald Auto Mall, dude, you go in there and says, well, how about if I give you $1,000 less? They walk away.
Right.
They're like,
but
you ain't paying the sticker price. And back in the day, you could sit there and say, well, this thing's $18,000. I'll give you 16. No, how about we say 17? You know, and you get that little thing. But now, nope. Well, it's out the window.
Just like Gary was saying, is that the price of everything, the goods to make that vehicle, the margin's thin. And I would think, me personally, if the three of us, going back to this Jeep, decide that we're going to buy a Jeep, you're going to buy it from one dealer, you from another dealer, me from another dealer, we should all be able to come back and say, hey, I paid $58,000 for this Jeep. Not, I'm an idiot, I paid $58,000 for this Jeep. Somehow you got it for $48,000. and you got it for 45.
That's because he knows he has an inside.
Right.
But see, the ability to sell and everything across like state line and regions, that's what makes it to that point. If I want to pay, say, $75,000, which the dealer in my in my city is selling it for, I can hit that internet and say, oh, I can drive 2 hours and I can buy that son of a bitch for freaking 55.
Right.
I'll do it.
Or not even that now. Now you got Carvana and
Carvana
stuff
and
like
stuff.
that. And they're like, oh, this car's out in Utah,
Right.
and I can have it delivered.
Right. And
Fair.
see, that's what gets me pissed off about health insurance.
Right.
Right? Because you got all these Congress and these mother effers that are trying to hold those markets. If you released the markets into where, and this is another thing, and again, I know people don't like Trump, but Trump trying to make it work, is that as a health insurance company, I should be able to work or offer services in wherever. So if you have the monopoly now in, let's just say, Maryland, right, and you're offering this coverage or whatever for $1,000 a month, it's like, shit, that's expensive stuff. But I am now able to market or go to any market I want to, and I say, you know what, I can offer the exact same services in my company for $500 a month. And like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to come into mine.
Absolutely.
But that's not how they have it set. They have regional blockers to where I can't go in another region and offer my healthcare services. And that is coming from freaking Congress because they're locking shit up because of how they're involved or in these companies and the what do you call them?
Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, but what do you call the people? Lobbyists.
Lobbyists.
Right? Because they're saying, hey, blah, blah, blah. That's the problem. If you just said, release the market,
At least the Kraken.
you'd have that. And you wouldn't have these astronomical medical, because like there's 2 hospitals in this city. That hospital is charging $5 million. This one's charging $5. Same adequate care.
Right.
Adequate care. Let's absolutely no. But I'm like, hell, I can go in here and get some decent care. I mean, I don't need to eat Grey Poupon over here for $50 billion. I'll just go over here for a reasonable price and get some reasonable care.
Yeah. Now,
And that's and that is getting the problem. I'll take everything back. I will take everything back to freaking the government.
right. And with that being said, I listened to a philosophy podcast, and one of the subjects that they had was they compared themselves, the UK, to America. Now, with the UK, they tax everything. It's a high rate of taxation, but when it comes to healthcare, it's included in that. So they get to see what what their taxes are going towards that they're paying. Now, with that being said, they don't have that, one size fits all healthcare. There's like 6 different choices that you can elect. I don't know what else is involved in that, but they have choices. We don't get that. We pay higher taxes than they do, but our healthcare isn't including in that. And that's the other thing that also is helping to decline in the middle class is you got to have it, especially if you have kids. It keeps getting higher and higher.
Right. And the problem with their health care, unfortunately, is you have a choice on certain tiers, but based on your income and who you are, you only have a choice of so many tiers. And there's a lot of people that have to wait a lot of time.
Sure.
Even just for a regular visit.
Right. But the thing of it is that you can see what your money is going towards. As Americans paying taxes,
Right. Oh yeah, we pay.
we don't
too many
get any
taxes.
benefit from that.
But like I'm saying, I don't want to pay the tax. I want to not pay all those taxes. I want to keep my money. I want you to open the market up, and I can search for myself where I want to put my money.
Right.
And like I said before, when they don't tax the shit out of the middle class, and they let them have more access to more of their own money that they've earned, the freaking economy has boomed. Donations has boomed. Everything is boomed because they get more generous with their money if they're left more money to themselves, they know where it's going.
Right, because then I can afford it. I'm still going to go into deeper debt, but I have the illusion that I can afford buying that expensive handbag or those expensive shoes.
Right. But but the thing is that the economy grows, and like I said, the donate charities go through the roof when when they get a tax cut, and you would think, well, they want to keep all their money, they're just holding it. No, that's not what happened.
Right.
So that's what we need to get back to.
The last comment I'm going to direct on before we hopefully get out of here is going back to my financial illiteracy. I remember when I was active duty, and of course, when you're young, it's just like a young college kid. You get these credit cards. Everybody wants to get a credit card or whatever. Everybody mailing you shit. Well, this idiot next door to me gets this brand new credit card. He's like, hey, come over here. I got to show you this. So I go over next door. Brand new TV, brand new VCR. That's when VCRs are still around. Brand new stereo. And I'm like, where the hell did you get all this? He's like, man, they sent me my credit card. I'm like, are you nuts? I said, and what are your monthly payments? Well, I only have to pay $20 a month. I said, I can do it. They don't, for how long? Well, I don't know.
11 years.
I just pay $20 a month. I say, well, what's your interest rate?
Yeah.
But that is a lot of where the problem runs into, is people are like, whoa, I can pay that back. But are they getting taught that in school? No. It's like none of that gets taught. It's like checkbook. You're like, you say, do you know how to balance a checkbook? What the hell's a checkbook? Okay, nobody writes checks anymore. However, you still have a checking account. So do you know how to read your account statement when you come in? I don't pay any attention to that.
Right. But the other thing you have to realize,
I don't pay any attention to like the savings, like your interest rates, or what the difference between an APR is and regular, and they don't.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is, I hate to sound like my grandfather, but the thing of it is that we grew up with checks and checkbooks.
Right.
We knew what the value of a dollar was. Kids coming up today, I don't know what the hell a checkbook is because they have a credit card. They have that.
Is that a Bitcoin? Or now they got Bitcoin.
Right.
Is that Bitcoin?
But they have that checking account on a card. And, I can go online and look at, I can look at what my balance is.
See, I agree with Ed. I think it's a societal thing, and I'll tell you why. It's just like, girls, girls, I understand they don't get pregnant by themselves, but like girls getting pregnant, right? Well, we've been talking about, for decades on pregnancy, this and the other. Well, it's not, why did you think it was going to happen to me? Okay, you weren't using any protection, and you didn't think it was happening to you. Or somebody would go and, like we watch this, what do you call it, another 40 or 48 hours, whatever it is, and they're like, oh, well, I went to rob him, but I didn't think it was going to get to that point and stuff. Yeah, but you had a gun with you.
Exactly.
You knew something could pop off.
Yeah, there's the intent.
So it's all the societal thing, and I think even if you try to teach somebody in school about this, that, and the other, so if society's not teaching it, they're not going to pay attention at all.
If social media is not teaching it, because that's where everybody's getting their fucking education these days, is social media. These kids are getting it from fucking TikTok. I'm getting on my F word. They're getting it from TikTok. They're getting it from Instagram, and screw everything else.
It's the influencers.
Yeah. So mom and dad, you're out. Teacher's out. Oh, Betty on TikTok, who does stupid dance tricks. She sat there and told me I could get this for that.
Like everything else, you could teach them what they should do, but they go out and what they see modeled. I agree. Oh, my wife's actually agreeing with me. You might want to jot that down.
Let's do a screenshot of this.
And I agree. But I'm with you though. I don't think you should not. I don't think you should just turn your back and say, "F it, I'm not going to do any of it."
Right.
But it's like we can try to do what we can.
But see,
right. But it's like raising kids. I can sit there and have boundaries and rules and everything in my house. But once you walk out, and I do the best I can.
Sure.
But once you walk out that door, I have no control over what happens, of what you do. You're making your own decisions. But so many people in social media that I'll just do whatever everybody else is doing or whatever else. And I think that also goes back to our last episode when it comes down to the women in STEM. But I think society's like, oh, it's about, this or fashion or this or that. It's not about the STEM because that's not what's being broadcast out in social media.
That's not what's glamorous.
So that's what I'm going to go for, and I'm going to go there. I'm going to go down that road every time.
Yep.
I can't dance to it.
Or it's like, So that was another thing I wanted to talk about. I mean, not in this one, but another episode talking about bullying, right? And
Still going
how
on.
much the schools have put into it, and
worse.
it's not. Not only is it not stopping, it's getting worse. And so it's like, so I want to go, and we'll talk about this at another time. But how does awareness even work?
Right.
So anyway, I won't get into that, but that's that's another topic I'm thinking of for one of these
That's
shows.
a good one.
I think kind of just like what I was trying to say is I think that there's some people. Obviously, you're going to have a group of people where you could it's like talking to a brick wall. You could tell them all you want to, and they're going to do their own thing. Like you said, and it's worse now with social media. But there's also a point where there's people that have good intentions, but they just don't understand. What? That's like the subprime, back when the subprime mortgages were being let out, and you had these mortgage companies, these sharks that were like, well, let me get fancy. Look at these numbers right here. Can you afford that? And then they're like, oh shit, yeah, honey, honey, we can afford that. And they're like, gotcha. But see, somebody else would be like, well, this right here doesn't add up. Your math is a little funny right here in this area.
Right.
But see, we're not. That's like taxes. Like tomorrow's tax day, everybody. But it's like taxes. A lot of people, I don't want to deal with taxes. I'm taking it to this person.
H&R Block.
I'm taking it to this person. And it's like, and that's fine, but you got to at least know a little bit about what's going on. You got to at least know a little bit about that form. People are just like, and the tax code is like, that bit, here we go, getting on tax code.
All I know is I'm in way too much of a freaking high tax bracket for none of the bullshit, and I got more money coming out of my ass than should be humanly acceptable.
Exactly.
Well, let's put it this way.
Especially when you got Joe Biden paying 16%, and he makes freaking $100 and something million. He's paying 16%. Right. How you get into that tax bracket?
My mom,
motherfucker.
I found out my mom's retired, and she's making way too much money. And the government's like, and don't believe this bullshit where you retire and your retirement's not taxed. Horse shit.
Well, probably
there's like one. I think Social Security.
Part of the problem is she's living in Maryland too. Unfortunately, I love Maryland.
Yeah,
but retirement income, holy
they still crap. They're trying to fix that Maryland's because now they have it like if you're 65 and older, they actually do. Finally, because people are leaving the state left and right, and they have like they are giving them a break once you're over 65. But once you make it that point, but still it's not like Pennsylvania where it's like nope, we aren't taxing any of your retirement.
Right, but they tax you on everything.
But still,
but it's not school tax.
Yeah, but it's not comparable.
Right.
I did look that up because you do have like school tax and stuff like that, but it's not even comparable
or Delaware.
to.
Oh yeah,
Delaware. I mean, people flocking to Delaware because it's like, or Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's just like because nobody wants to deal with that bullshit.
Yeah. Right.
Amen, brother.
Yep.
Sister Soul.
Yep.
All right.
So that's
so yeah, Wendy. A lot of this was about the topic, and then I think a lot of it was just us bitching about old men that we are.
Yeah, but
we're like the Muppet guys up there in the booth or whatever, the old geezers.
But the thing of it is like even though we offshot from the discussion, it's still part of the discussion. This is part of why the middle class.
It affects all of it affects it,
and it's education, not like school education, but it's self-education. If you don't know, you don't know. I mean, how many times have anybody ever had a discussion about the middle class or where you fall? No one.
Well, and
no one has that.
Well, and I think too, when you look at the middle class, because there's a lot of, as we discussed, there's a lot of things that fall into the middle class. But so you've got to separate the money, the financial part. And in my personal thing is then you get down to what you were talking about, the ethics. That's when you start getting into maybe social class, because then you start dealing with who you hang around with, the ethics, the morals, and stuff like that. And so it all is like this big amalgam. It's all together. But I think social class too has a lot to do with that. That's because then you come down to socialism. But I mean by socialism is by interacting with each other, not the government shit. But is how we the ethics and stuff like that. And the thing about God too is I tell you what, I would love to have God's, and stuff come back into school like it was back in the 70s, but we got to be careful now, because now, back when I went to church, there was, we did the Bible, we sung hymns, and that was it. That was good. Sunday school. Now, the first half hour or so, now it's getting political. And,
Yep.
And if you
That's my
don't,
point.
and if you go to this church and you don't believe in this, you don't like this person, well, that person's a he, and it's like, you know what? Keep the shit out. Back when I went to church, it was like I said, it was the Bible, fellowship, and hymns. We didn't talk about Democrats. We didn't talk about Republicans. We didn't talk about any of that shit. We talked about Jesus, his disciples. We talked about 10 Commandments and how many of them I was breaking.
Yeah.
That's because a good Baptist would never be a Democrat.
See, here we go.
And
You know what? That's why I say we bring back God and the paddle
Oh,
in the school.
that scared the shit
That's
out of me.
what we need.
Discipline.
I never got hit with the paddle, but I remember
You
in
should have
elementary.
got. You gotten about 50
But
shots
I remember,
to the head.
I remember in the principal's office, me and this little other kid, we had gotten like a little fight, and we had to put our hands out like that, both of us, and he had the paddle, and he was hitting, and we're like, ah! But it's
Should
scared.
knock you upside your head. That's another aspect. That's another.
Purple.
That's another one I want to talk about.
Discipline.
Does a broken home, does it dictate who you are or what you do when you leave or when you grow?
Oh, so the
Yes.
Well, you didn't have a broken home, but look how you turned out.
I have a broken home. I had a broken home, and it's all about the choices. It's
That's
all
my
about
point.
your choices.
But see, I want to get into the analyze that to see
Well,
if people follow, the hate, or do they
I would
turn
say
around?
I would say it's about choices and support, because you have, if you are coming from a broken and you're broken or whatever, you have to have some support to help you get your self-determine your
Gotcha.
determination.
Well,
yeah, that's
because if
another
you don't
good
have
Well,
that support,
that's a good question.
That is a
That's
very
a good
question.
statement.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think everybody's situation is probably like mine, but I had no support on either side.
Right.
well, no,
But again,
but look, no, but see, but you eventually did with Wendy. What if you didn't have Wendy come along?
yeah, but
and
she
you
wasn't
didn't
my
have that
parent.
support?
I'm talking
No,
about
I'm talking about broken
But I'm talking about the
family.
broken home,
Right.
And that's where the support, or at least it was supposed to come from.
But it
So,
didn't.
but it didn't. All right, we're getting too far.
we're going.
That could be a really
I
good
agree.
conversation. I'd really love to get into that.
Yes,
because-
absolutely.
All right, so that's it.
That's it. We used all our words, folks.
All of them.
But the sad part is, I mean, not that it's sad, but this conversation can go on forever.
I feel like you're.
You are my parent. You're my mother.
It's apparent that Wendy is the parent.
Yes. Oh yeah, in more ways than one.
Okay.
So that's all we got.
That's all I got.
I guess I think we probably need to. I probably tone this down a little bit as far as lengthwise. But again, at the end of the point, if people don't want to watch, if they think we're rambling, whatever they want to watch, they want to cut it off. Fine.
They can fast forward.
But sometimes I got to get on my soapbox.
Well, I mean, it's all a part of the discussion.
That's what I think.
It's everybody's argument. And I don't mean, fisticuff argument, but, we all have our own points of view on things. A lot of them connect. Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes you feel like a nut.
And sometimes I feel like connecting with some of these little rat bastards out here.
Get some.
He's more violent now than he was back when he was in school.
That's because we're older.
Yeah.
Crotchety old man.
I'm not more violent. I talk about violence more.
Right.
But as far as actually physically violent, I'm actually not more violent. But I do want to, or let's just say I would like to inflict more violence now than I did.
There you go. I couldn't even kick my own ass at this point in time.
Without getting cramps.
Yeah.
All right. So
Time out.
So I guess that's it for this week. I guess we'll be back. So what's the next?
2 weeks, that would be the 28th.
Okay.
28th. Is there anything going on 28th?
Yeah, what's going on in 28th? Nothing.
It's a Sunday. The last Sunday of April.
Yes. Not that really matters about it. That doesn't really matter. But the 28th of April Then we have 20th of May. And then what's the 19th of June? Is it 19th? Is that when we're leaving?
I know. That's one thing I was like, I have to look in ahead to see if that's going to be a weekend that we were normally supposed to do a show or not do a show. We might have to,
I think we're going to have to do a show. It's a shame we can't
at the
do
beach?
it live at the beach.
We kind of talk about it every time we try to do that. It's the first time we did it, it was fine, but it's like he has to set everything up.
Yeah,
and it's this big thing, and then
Pain
that way
in
we
the
can
ass.
just kind of like decompress or decompose.
You know what? But we could do a
remote.
quick remote, just like say hey from the beach, whatever, and blah blah blah, and or maybe maybe we double up the week before.
The topic of today at the beach is what to wear and what not to wear at a certain age. What's age appropriate to wear at the beach?
Oh my
now,
God!
Look at,
Oh my God!
So if we do a week, and the following 2 weeks is the beach, maybe that week before we go ahead and do another show,
There we go. I like that.
or
idea.
after, or whatever we want to do.
There we go.
I like that.
All right.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
All
we
right,
could talk.
folks.
Yeah, we could talk about what's appropriate.
Oh my!
You know what? We could talk about it afterwards, and we might even have some photographic evidence.
we could
Exactly.
forecast
I'm like, look
the
at this!
future.
Look at this fat bastard, dude! Come on, I'm fat too, but you're not going to see me walking out
The
there.
guy
with nothing.
strutting his stuff.
Yeah, we could forecast the future on what not to wear and what to wear at the beach.
And I guarantee we're going to see it.
Oh,
So, all right. So that's it from us.
thank
We will
you.
see you guys 2 weeks from now on the 28th.
Same time, same station. 2
Yes.
o'clock.
2 o'clock
2
on
o'clock.
Sunday.
Bye, everybody. Look at that flab.
Yeah, look at you. You look like Mrs. Gilbert in middle school.
Somebody's got the bingo arms.
I know.
Bingo! All right.
Where's my dauber?
Exactly.
See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.